Hi, I'm Vena Jones-Cox from therealestategoddess.com, and we're doing a series of videos on better understanding wholesaling. And after yesterday's videos, I got some questions and comments that were along the lines of, Vena, you seem angrier than your usual self as you are telling people how to wholesale, and what's going on with that? And the answer is, as a full-time wholesaler, I'm a full-time real estate investor and I do a lot of wholesale deals. I really hate what is going on in my business. I really hate the amount of bad education that's out there, the number of people who are out trying to be in my business but don't understand what it is, and are frankly messing it up for the rest of us. They're causing regulatory scrutiny, they are turning buyers off. I'm hearing more and more from buyers, well, wholesalers don't have good deals, so why should I listen to you? And it's not because of my deals, it's because of other people's deals that didn't know what they were doing. So I'm calmer today. I took a Xanax. We're gonna talk more gently today, maybe, but the topic today is the top 10 fatal mistakes that wholesalers make. If you see yourself on this list, it's all curable, folks. You just got to go out and learn how to do it right. And wholesaling is not rocket science, so you don't need a college education in order to do this, but you do need to devote some time and energy to actually understanding your business. By the way, it was a little difficult to come up with 10 as opposed to 20 or 30 mistakes that I see wholesalers make, but some of the ones that I thought of really more apply to you after you're already in the wholesaling business, after you're doing a lot of deals. And for instance, one that I discarded because it doesn't apply to most people, because most people don't ever get advanced in the wholesaling business because they never learn enough about it to stay in business, was you need to be able to raise money. You need to be able to close deals when it's necessary or desirable. So we're gonna kind of stick to the 10 that we all here in the office have agreed are the top 10 things that we see. So you ready? Fatal errors wholesalers make. What makes them fatal? It's fatal to your business is what it is. I mean, in my experience, most people who start out in the wholesaling business who say, I want to be a wholesaler, are not in the business a year or 2 years later. It's not that you can make these mistakes and actually still stay in business in the long term. Number 10 is wholesalers who think of what they do as the strategy. Wholesaling is not the strategy. Wholesaling is a strategy. And when you learn what you need to learn to become a successful wholesaler, you also learn what you need to learn to do other things with real estate. And I would strongly encourage you to look at the wholesaling business as the business of finding great deals, and then maybe some of them you assign to other people, but some of them you ought to be keeping, because you do realize that if you're doing this right, the people that you're assigning the deals to are making a lot more money off of that deal than you are. And I mean by orders of magnitude. Some of them are making 10 times what you're making off of that deal. So you should get yourself some rental properties. You should get yourself some deals to retail. And yes, there's other things to learn in order to do those exit strategies. But at the same time, if the deal is good enough for you to sell at a profit of $5,000 or $10,000 or $15,000 to another investor, it's more than good enough for you to keep, isn't it? Because you've got it at even a cheaper price than that. So that's number 10 on our list of the top 10 fatal errors wholesalers make. Number 9 is not having enough lead sources. And this is another thing that it's common to all real estate strategies. You gotta have lots of leads so that you can do lots of deals. It's maybe even more important in the case of wholesaling, because if you're a rehabber, if you buy houses and fix them and resell them, realistically, how many of those do you need in a year? What, 5, 10? If you're a super retailer, you might be looking for 20 deals in a year. As a wholesaler, because you don't get tied up in these deals, you don't You don't spend 3 months rehabbing them and 3 months trying to sell them, or you don't spend a month and a half updating them for rental and then 30 years paying off that mortgage. You can handle a lot more deals than a typical retailer, lease option person, etc. can handle. So that means you need to get more deals into the pipeline. And most people know 3 or 4 ways that they could get deals into the pipeline. Most people are not implementing more than one of those, and some of you guys are stuck on one. Some of you guys have like one thing that you do, and when there's no more deals on Craigslist, you don't have anything else that you can do. So there are probably 8 to 10 really good ways to find the kinds of properties we're looking for, the ugly single family, 2 family, 3 families with a motivated seller. And I would challenge you, how many of those are you using, and also how well do you understand them? I was challenged with a question after yesterday's videos about, okay, so you teach 10 ways to find great deals. Are they the same 10 ways of MLS and bandit signs and letters and postcards? And my answer to that was, there is no unique, miraculous, never before seen way to find deals. But at the same time, you really have to understand what deals you're going to find from each of those sources, what the best ways to access them are, and so on, because you can waste an enormous amount of time making lowball offers on MLS properties that can't even be assigned. So you need to be using, in order to do, let's say 2 to 3 deals a month, which seems to be a goal for a lot of people, you probably need to be consistently using 3 to 4 ways of finding deals that are completely different ways. And obviously that's a lot of work, so you do need to outsource it, and we'll come back to that later. Number 8 on the list of fatal errors is bad marketing. There's a lot of companies out there now who offer these done-for-you marketing services, by which I mean they generate the lists, they generate the mailings, you never see anything, you don't write the letters and postcards, you don't have anything to do with it, you just buy this service and off it goes. I get 3 to 5 postcards and letters from these services each and every week, because I don't do number 10. I have rental properties, I have properties that I rehab. And any marketing will work better than no marketing. Let me say that. If you're using one of these services, I'm sure you're getting phone calls. However, you are not getting the highest number of calls that you could get for your dollar, because a lot of it is bad marketing. It looks like junk mail. It has messages in it that aren't attractive. Great example, I got a postcard a couple of days ago, and it was clearly from a wholesaler, and what it said was, I will offer you a fair price for your property. That is terrible language when what you're looking to do is buy a property at a below market price. The person who wants a fair price, and in your mind fair price means its price is fair to me, in their mind it means it's top price. The kind of person who wants top price is not the kind of person you want to call you. It's better not to get the phone call than it is to get the phone call from somebody who says, all right, well, here's what I want for my house, and you say, well, I can give you half that, and they say, well, you said you could pay me a fair price. That's not a fair price. That's terrible, terrible language. So you really need to understand what to say to different kinds of sellers that is going to attract the right kind of seller and is going to generate the phone call. You need to study marketing. Now, the bad marketing isn't limited to marketing to your sellers. If I see one more of you folks come into a real estate association meeting with a flyer for a wholesale deal that glowingly describes all of the neat cosmetic features of the property, I'm going to strangle you. I'm sorry, I'm going to come from the back of the room to the front of the room, and I'm going to strangle you, because that is not what your buyers need to hear. Who are your buyers again? They're investors. If you don't know that, watch yesterday's video. What buyers want to hear is, how much work am I going to have to do? How much money am I going to make? How much cash flow am I going to get? Yes, they need to know that the furnace isn't there, and they need to know the kitchen needs to be redone. They do not need to know that the backyard is beautifully shaded with a 20 by 15 redwood deck, and that it has a dining room large enough for hutch, okay? That's what homeowners need to know. And again, that's just incorrect thinking. It's not thinking about who it is you are marketing to and what it is they want. Now, there's some other things about marketing, particularly to buyers, that you need to be real careful of. You never want to say in any open advertising for buyers that you have a property for sale unless you've closed it. If you own it, it's fine to say I've got a property for sale. If you say I've got a property for sale and what you actually have is a deal for sale that you intend to assign, you need to say that. You need to be careful that you are being accurate in what it is you are offering. Number 7 on our fatal errors list is bad negotiation practices. If you believe that in your conversations with sellers, your goal is to beat them down to the bottom possible price as quickly as possible, your results are going to show that. Your results are going to be based on the fact that your attitude is, he's my enemy and I'm his enemy and this is a hostile negotiation, and what we need to do is just get him to his bottom dollar as quickly as possible. That is a bad negotiation practice, because he's not your enemy. I mean, what's the situation here? He wants to sell, you want to buy. All the, quote, negotiation is trying to figure out if there's a price at which we can agree on this. He is your friend. He came to you for help. He is not your enemy. So many times when I do live seller calls in front of students, one of the things that they get really surprised about is that almost across the board, the sellers I'm talking to thank me at the end of the conversation. They say things like, well, it's really great to talk to you. It's been really nice that you've been willing to spend this time with me. And of course, the students are saying, you told him you could pay him 20% of what he was asking for the house, and he still thanked you. Well, that's because I don't approach it like, this is my enemy and I must make this deal, and if he didn't want to sell for 20% of his asking price, then I want nothing to do with him. I offer information. I tell them things. I spend some time educating them about what's actually going on in their market, because they don't always know. Many of these sellers haven't seen the house that we're talking about for a year or more, and I offer them, I offer them comps. I offer them all sorts of things to help them make a decision about what to do next. And many times, because of that, I don't make the deal on the phone right then, but 3 months later, when they've heard the same price from 4 other people, they call me back and they say, you know what, I want to work with you. And surprisingly, I get at least 2 or 3 times a year, I get a call from a seller who says, I actually had someone who offered me a little bit more than you did, but I want to work with you because you were so nice and so helpful. And you're sitting there thinking, oh man, that is guru BS right there. That never happens. I am telling you, it happens to me 2 or 3 times a year. Now, that is not even my biggest objection to bad negotiation practices, because realistically, that only hurts you. It hurts your chances of getting that deal when you were approaching a negotiation hostily. My real problem with bad negotiation practices is the folks out there who intentionally put a property under contract for more money than they know is the right price. So you want to pay, and I'll use Midwestern numbers here, you want to pay $39 for a junker property, and the seller's absolutely stuck at $50, and you know perfectly well $50 is the wrong deal. But you put it under contract anyway with the intention of going back to the seller in 3 or 4 weeks after he's sort of already mentally spent the money and saying, well, you know what, I got my inspections done and I can only do $39. Or worse yet, doing that at the negotiation table, or at the closing table. I've heard of that. I've heard of investors or wholesalers who sit down at the closing table and say, well, I know we agreed on $50, but what I have is a check for $39, take it or leave it. That is just scummy, okay? That is just wrong, 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 wrong. Now, again, sometimes it happens that you go through a property and you think it is worth $50, and then something comes up that tells you it's only worth $39 later on. Maybe you're not a foundation expert. The property's got a foundation problem. You threw a number out there thinking the foundation problem is going to cost $5,000. Now you've had a foundation person come look at it. It's going to cost $20,000. That is a legitimate reason for anyone, wholesaler or not, to renegotiate a deal. I wasn't a big enough expert to understand the cost. Now I do understand the cost, and this is where we need to be. That's fine. This business, though, of let's just put everything we can under contract and then either try and find a sucker to buy it at a higher price or else go back and renegotiate with the seller later, that's just a bad negotiation practice, and it will very quickly get you a very bad reputation. It will make sellers angry and litigious, and we will come back to that one in a moment. Number 6 biggest mistake is bad paperwork, or worse yet, no paperwork. If you don't have a property under contract and you're a wholesaler, you don't have anything to sell, and you should not be telling one single solitary human being that you would like to get X dollars for that deal, because you don't have a deal. Until it's on paper, you don't have a deal. Even beyond that, though, the purchase agreements, the assignment agreements, the purchase agreements for assignment, if you're using land trusts, having the right land trust, all of those things need to be correct. And if you don't understand your contract, or you just downloaded it off the web, or somebody you know gave it to you, and you don't understand it, why are you using it? Why do I keep seeing wholesalers trying to assign contracts that they literally don't know what the contract says? And they're telling me one thing, they're saying, well, you know, they're going to pay all the taxes, and the contract says a different thing. You have to have the paperwork right. Ladies and gentlemen, paperwork is in place for a reason. It makes the deal legally enforceable. If it says something different than what you think it says, the deal may not be enforceable, or it may not be enforceable as you and the seller or you and the buyer understand it. Don't skip over this. So many real estate entrepreneurs of every stripe they're just really sloppy with their paperwork. Don't be sloppy. Get good forms and contracts. Get ones that are created for your strategy. So if you're a wholesaler, you want a purchase contract that's created for wholesalers, and make sure that you understand what it says and that it is correct for the particular deal. I'll give you another example of how paperwork fails. A lot of wholesalers pursue estates, pursue people who've inherited properties, because many times those properties are in need of quite a bit of updating, and the heirs are not especially interested in doing that updating, and they are especially interested in turning the property into cash. And sometimes these estates have a lot of things in them, like room after room after room of things in them, and it costs money for you or your buyer to remove that stuff. It can cost $2,000 or $3,000 to remove an entire household full of personal property. So you might say to the seller, well, this is all going to be gone, right? I mean, you're taking all this. The seller says, sure, of course we are. And then you get to the day of closing and it's not gone. What can you do about that? Well, if there's not a clause in your contract that says the property will be left in broom clean condition, then there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And I would add that in addition to saying the property should be in broom clean condition, it also says, or $2,000 will be deducted from seller's proceeds at closing to pay for clean out. Because if all you say is it has to be in broom clean condition, what that means is on the day of closing, you have to decide whether or not to close. And you don't want to be in the position of deciding whether or not to close. You want to be in the position of, we can close because we've already taken care of this additional expense in the purchase agreement to begin with. Fatal mistake number 5 is not outsourcing. There is so much about the wholesaling business that must be done that is not what you would call high-level work. You can outsource things to people who don't really even know that much about real estate if you will create the systems to do that, and you will create accountability and follow-up for it, and that frees up your time to do the stuff that maybe really does require your personal touch, such as actually talking to sellers, inspecting properties, and so on. What are some examples of this? Well, sending out marketing. Licking stamps and addressing envelopes should not be your job. It should be somebody else's job, because if it's somebody else's job, guess what will happen? It will get done. And you know you're not doing it consistently. Even something as seemingly skill-oriented as running comps. Once you've run comps 100 times, You know exactly what website to log into. You know exactly what criteria to put in. The skill is not in the running of them, it is in the evaluation of them. So why could someone else not get a list of the properties you want comped, do what you're doing, and just send you the results? Yeah, I know it only takes 5 minutes to log in there and put in the criteria, but if it's taking you 5 minutes 9 times a week, that's time that you could be spending making more deals or just hanging out with your family and relaxing. There's tons of things that can be outsourced in the wholesaling business very inexpensively to virtual assistants. At some point you're going to want to outsource even the bigger things in your business, such as the bookkeeping and the even some of the acquisition stuff, talking to the sellers. You need to figure out what those things are or learn what those things are and start outsourcing right away. Virtual assistants for some of the very basic stuff like list building can be hired for between $2 and $5 an hour on demand. You don't have to have a full-time job for them. So don't think that in today's world where the labor market is an international market that you have to be doing everything. The fourth item is, or the number 4 on our top 10 list going backwards, is not understanding that there are legal and regulatory issues in regards to wholesaling. So many people seem to think, well, there's no laws about wholesaling, so I don't have to worry about anything. That is absolutely not true. Contract law is important in regards to wholesaling. We already talked about that when we talked about paperwork. There's the issue of, are you or are you not acting as a real estate agent in the deals you're doing? Now, the argument that I and many of the attorneys I know would make is if you're doing this right, if you have a property under contract and you have that interest in the property, you are free to assign that contract. That's sort of black letter law. But if what you're doing is putting buyers and sellers together, or what you're doing is advertising for buyers and going and finding them particular deals, or if what you're doing is not putting properties under contract and still trying to sell them, or you're taking a finder's fee or a bird dog fee or something like that, the truth is you probably do need to get a real estate license. And getting a real estate license isn't the worst thing that you could do in any case, but you really ought to know which side of the line you're on. Other legal and regulatory issues. As wholesalers, the more business we do and the more sophisticated we get, the more we run into things like land trusts and like quitclaim deeds, and if we're buying from bulk buyers, we're going to see a lot of limited warranty deeds and quitclaims. So understanding all of those things becomes important, but I think the most important thing is understanding how your state feels about the wholesaling business and what side of the line you need to be on. If you'd like to hear a complete discussion about the regulatory issues and you are watching this video in the right time frame, you can go to therealestategoddess.com. You can download a webinar that I did called Why Your State Hates Wholesaling and How to Keep Flipping Properties Anyway, that is a complete discussion on that topic. Number 3, going it alone. I think that I give very, very complete education about wholesaling when I teach classes on that topic. And yet I know perfectly well that no matter how just exhaustively, obsessively, compulsively detailed the classes and the home study materials and audios are, you're probably going to run across something that's not there. And no one can create something. I mean, I've got nearly 20 years experience just in the wholesaling market and 25 years experience in the real estate market. And almost everything that could happen in a particular deal has probably happened to me at some time or another. But explaining everything that has ever happened when there's a vanishingly small chance that it would happen to you would be confusing, and it wouldn't help you organize your thoughts about this. But the problem is when you do run across that issue and you can't find it in a book anywhere, where are you going to get that problem solved? If you don't have any place to go, you have no way of making that deal happen, and you're losing out on a potential payday. If your source of information is one of these free online chat room type places where anybody can weigh in, whether they actually have any knowledge or experience about it or not, you may be getting the wrong information. If your source of information is somebody at your association who's done 10 deals, it's extremely unlikely that they're going to be able to come up with the correct answer, and they may just be more guessing and trying to look important than actually telling you the both legally and practically correct way to do things. It is important, in other words, to have someone that you have access to who has a pretty high level of experience and hopefully a high level of ethics in regards to the wholesaling business. Now, there are programs out there where you can get phone access to sometimes the guru, more often a phone room where the person sitting there answering the questions gets paid $12 an hour, has very little real estate experience, and is literally flipping through a book, and if the answer's not in the book, this is the answer you will get. Contact your attorney, contact your CPA, or go to your local real estate association. Those are the three answers that I most often hear from those phone rooms. Those very expensive programs, the $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 programs, are very often sold by people who are great salespeople and really don't know that much about the real estate business. You need to find somebody who will do this for you, at least at the beginning. I mean, you may not need them forever and ever, but who can do it for you at least at the beginning for a reasonable price. As a matter of fact, I think this is so important that with most of my live classes, I offer 6 months of email follow-up for folks because I know you're going to go out there on the road, and I know something's going to come up, and you're going to want somebody to bounce it off of. You're going to want to have somebody look at the comps and make sure that you're right, and that just makes your life so much easier. It cuts so many years off your learning curve. It keeps you from making mistakes. That's half of what I do with my students is I keep them from doing deals they should not do, and the other half is encouraging them by saying, yes, you were right about this, this is the right price, you should go ahead and put it under contract, and then your next step is to do X. So I had mentors I still have mentors to this day, but the entire time that I was in the starting process of wholesaling, I had people I could go to and ask specific questions as they came up. And until you've done this, when you're still in the stage of, I'm a learner, I'm a newbie, you can't even picture the questions you're going to have. You can't picture the questions you're going to have until you start talking to sellers. And I could write a book of silly stories about things that have come up that took me 3 hours to research and figure out what the answer was. But most people wouldn't care about that book. But here's something I know that I'm guessing that your guy who's done 10 deals over 18 months doesn't know. If your seller is out of the country and needs to get a deed signed, there's this thing called an apostille that is sort of the international equivalent of a notary, and they need to go find an apostille to get it notarized because otherwise the deed would not be legal in the United States. And the apostille in Nice, France is open on Tuesdays. Only experience tells you that kind of thing. Offering bad deals. Far and away, the biggest complaint about wholesalers and the biggest thing that will crush your career before it ever gets started is going out there offering deals at prices that don't make sense for the buyers. I cannot say this enough. I know I talked about it in the video yesterday, but I cannot say this enough. And it was funny, after I talked about it yesterday, I went on Facebook and a guy was offering a deal that is 7 blocks away from me, and his asking price was $29,900. Yes, Californians, that is $29,900, not $299,000. And all I had to do was look at the address and know he was asking $10,000 too much for it. If it was in perfect shape, it wouldn't be worth $29,900. And this guy's posting this all over Facebook at all of the house buyer sites, on all of the local websites, and I don't know what to say. I mean, am I going to pay careful attention to this guy's deals in the future? No, because either he does not know what he is doing, which I think is probably the case, or he's trying to find somebody who's too stupid to know that is a deal that is overpriced by about 50%. Sometimes you offer bad deals because you haven't done number one. You haven't, that is to say, done this. Done number one. You have not done this. And I want to attribute 70% of the bad deals I see out there to the fact that the wholesaler just has not bothered to really learn how to comp properties and estimate repair costs. Some people offer bad deals because they're being greedy, because they say, I want to make $10,000 off of every deal, and because I was only able to get this under contract at $19,900, which would probably be the right sale price, I'm going to jack it up to $29,900, and I'm not even going to think about who my buyer is and whether this is a good deal for them. Unfortunately, there are some folks out there who what they do is they go out and they find newbie buyers, or they find buyers who don't understand the market because they don't live in the market, and they successfully sell this deal a few times, and then what happens? Most of the deals that my business has sold over the course of the last 10 years have gone to a relatively small set of buyers because they keep coming back over and over and over and over again. You have heard the adage that it costs more to get a new customer than it does to go back to an old customer, right? If you've got a business where you're always having to find the new customer because your old customers didn't make any money on your last deal, that is a hard life to live. And I don't think you want to be in a business where you are selling things to people who don't make money on them, right? I mean, this is supposed to be a win-win-win. The seller wins by getting rid of a property he doesn't want. Your buyer wins by making money, and you win by making money as well, right? So I think that's the business you want to be in. I heard recently that there's actually a class going around the country, and from what I've heard, it is $15,000 for 2 days, and it's a wholesaling class, supposedly, and that the entire buyer finding strategy is find newbies and find out-of-town owners. Why? Because they don't know what they're doing, so it doesn't matter if you know what you're doing. I mean, come on, wouldn't you rather have a business where you sell more deals, maybe you don't make $10,000 on each and every one, but you have customers coming back to you over and over and over and over again, and they are making money and you are making money? So the number one mistake that wholesalers make, and really all of these other ones in some sense spring from this one, is not investing in understanding your profession. The number of wholesalers I know that if I say to them, what do you do? They say, well, I put buyers and sellers together and get paid, is amazing. And that's not what you do, that's what realtors do. Then when I say, well, okay, so why do you get paid? You know, what's your part of this? Well, I find the deal. No, I mean, yes, but that's just a small part of it. You know, I also evaluate the deal, I negotiate the deal, I wrap up the deal, I often will provide sort of back-end services to sellers or to buyers, like if they need a hard money lender, I have those sorts of contacts. If they need a roofer, I've talked to enough buyers to know who the good roofer is in the area. You do so much more than put buyers and sellers together. And again, you don't sell properties. If you didn't know that, you really need to think about investing in understanding your profession. It is not as simple as find a deal, sell a deal. It's just not. There's so many little nuances to the wholesaling business, and the more you know about them, the more money you will make and faster, and the better business person you will be, and the more you will be benefiting your sellers and your buyers, and frankly the community, as you take properties out of hands of sellers who don't have the time or money or energy to do anything with them, and put them into the hands of people who are going to fix them up, put renters in them, put homeowners in them, whatever the case may be. Investing means time and it means money. Free webinars are awesome and you should watch them to get motivated, because that's what they do. They motivate you, they don't teach you. $16 books that you can buy on Amazon.com are pretty good introductions to the concept of wholesaling. But there is no profession that makes money at the level at which you're going to make money as a wholesaler that doesn't spend a lot more time and a lot more effort getting educated then you need to, but you definitely need to carve out some time and say, I'm going to take 4 days, or I'm going to go to this conference, or I'm going to actually sit down and reread my home study course, or whatever the case may be, and continuing your education, right? Even after you've gotten the initial education, I can tell you that even from those $16 books, even from other people's home study courses, I have always gotten one idea that when implemented in my business made me $10,000 at least over the course of the next 6 months. So continuing your education, continuing to devote some time and money and effort to really learning your profession and being a professional. Tomorrow, we're going to do Q&A based on your questions about these last 2 videos. So if you'd like to enter a question, go to www.regoddess or therealestategoddess.com, therealestategoddess.com. Anything you want to know, I will answer your questions on camera tomorrow. I look forward to working with you in the future. Go to therealestategoddess.com, and for heaven's sakes, don't make these 10 mistakes. They're not even original. Everybody's making them. Go out and do it, but do it right.